I'm here with Will Bewley, Business Development Manager, QuoteWizard by LendingTree. Will, first off, thank you for doing this. Thanks for being here at LeadsCon. Talk to me about QuoteWizard by LendingTree. What are you telling people, prospective people, as they're coming by here? What's the story of your brand? What can people expect when they're starting to go into business with you guys?
Yeah, so QuoteWizard by LendingTree, we are the insurance arm for LendingTree. So LendingTree is obviously a massive name when it comes to personal finance and all things like financial services when it comes to consumers. Yeah, helping them find their personal loans, credit cards, debt relief, anything like that. Yeah. So we are their insurance arm. So what we do, auto insurance, home insurance, health and Medicare, we're the facilitators. I like to say we're the conduit between the consumer and then the end buyer, right? So whether that's a carrier, an agency, an FMO on like the health side, we basically are facilitating that conversation between the consumer and whoever is going to be basically getting that policy for them.
So how are you balancing the consumer experience, individually, but also balancing delivering leads to your gigantic consumer base? What's the mix for that? How are you balancing?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's coming with a different goal in mind, right? Yeah. Whether you're coming for auto insurance or whether you're over the age of 65 and you're looking to shop for your Medicare plan, we provide different experiences based off what you're looking for. Yeah. And it's something that I think that it's great that we bring to this market, and this, there's other people that are doing it, right? Yeah. But I think what we do really well is getting people where they need to go based on what they do. So not only are we siloing in on a single product for them, we're offering different things. Like for instance, if you go through our auto funnel, you might get a question about, are you interested in any auto warranty? So finding new and creative ways to get that customer more engaged and make that lead a little bit more valuable to the end buyer, I think is pretty critical for us, because not only are we trying to help out the consumer themselves, because we want to get, we want them to get that auto policy, right? Auto warranty is sort of, supplementary, but we would like to get them what they came for. But for the end buyer, for that carrier, that's become more valuable for them, because not only are they able to sell them the auto policy, it's like, oh, are you a homeowner? Well, yes, I am. Well, fantastic, because we can bundle this and lower that rate for you.
Awesome. And then look, how should a newer buyer think about lead mix? Because you're talking about not only getting people to the product that they want, but also retention and making sure that engaged buyers get to other products as well. So how should a new buyer think about lead mix when they're just getting started with you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we do and how we do it in a way is that, however that consumer is going to get to us, and whether it's someone that's in Gen Z or someone that's on the baby boomer side, right? I don't know about you, but my dad likes to talk to me. He'll call me at any point in the day and want to have a 30-minute conversation with me. So we have that ability to connect somebody with an agent, directly, so they can have that phone call. Mm-hmm. Or if you're more on the Gen Z side, you don't want to talk to anybody, right? We can just go ahead and get you through on our click funnel. So finding different ways to engage the consumer with a path that makes the most sense for them, I think is pretty critical. Because the last thing we want to do is have anybody drop off because they had an experience that wasn't right for them. Mm-hmm. So having the multitude of ways in which a consumer can get to the buyer, I think is pretty important for us. And then providing a suite of products that makes the most sense for them and catering that experience based off what that person's looking for.
And not to give too much away, but are there any verticals or spaces that you find that is trending in a new way, or space that you feel like you could get a lot more buyer capacity in as of right now?
It's no surprise, only 5-6 years ago, this world and insurance as a whole was in a bit of turmoil. Yeah. COVID kind of sent ripples through the entire industry, and as a result of that, everybody was in a bit of a flux, right? There's a lot of people, as far as performance marketing and lead generation, it was all over the place. Yeah. It was a fire and nobody knew what to do. Everyone was kind of running around with their head on fire, right? So I think over the course of the last few years especially, we've seen a lot more increase in the people that are looking for auto insurance. Rates have come down. Things are a lot more have become a little bit more affordable. Home has kind of been in a bit of a flux. We all know it, we all see it. But thankfully, there's still dedication to finance. We got to get the supply up, right? We got to get people motivated to buy homes. But having the access is what's most important. We want to make sure that we have the opportunity to present people with what they need.
And then a couple more questions. Sure. You talk about, again, retention and obviously the different demographics that you're targeting. What does the onboarding process look like for a buyer? Like you said, Gen Z may be someone who just wants to get in, get out, get on with their life.
Sure.
While baby boomers or older demographics may need more of a, hand-holding, or individual relationship. What's that onboarding look like for the buyer, whether it be the end user or any initial person coming into the process? Is it a longer process? How are you on a case-by-case basis, how are you appealing to each user?
Yeah, well, again, I mean, I think it's one of those things that, just with the way that the world has kind of evolved, I mean, we all have little mini computers in our pockets, right? So the keeping people engaged has always been a challenge, and it's become only progressively harder because people are used to that instant gratification, getting things on their time as soon as possible, right? So what we've done is, we've worked with our buyers, our end buyers, our carrier partners, our agency partners. We've worked with our consumer advocate groups. We're trying to create this balance where we are meeting people in the middle. We want to get all the information that a carrier might need, so they're not asking a multitude of questions after they've already, the consumer has entered all this information on the funnel, right? So we're trying to find that balance of okay, what can we capture, the absolute necessities that we can capture
100%.
versus what, something, a couple of extra questions that the agent on the other end can ask, in order to get that rate call one and get that policy bound for them. So it's a balance between trying to get everything that we need versus dumping all this information on them. The last thing we want to do is present a 45, question funnel to somebody because they're going to drop off after 2 questions. They're going to get, we're going to get John Smith and then they're gone, right? So getting enough information and making sure that, everything flows very nicely. If it's just like a long listed form, no one likes that, right? We want to get a good consumer experience. We want to keep them engaged. We want to get them clicking on things, typing in things, and ensuring that we're capturing the information that our carrier partners those buyers are really looking for.
And then obviously we're here at LeadsCon. We're seeing a bunch of people, whether it be the sales, the marketing, very different sides of very different verticals. What has been the conversations coming up to here? How have you been conveying QuoteWizard by LendingTree's story? And how should people who may be watching or coming over, how should they get started with QuoteWizard by LendingTree? What's the in? What's the entry?
Yeah. So honestly, the show is awesome. First time at LeadsCon myself. I mean, the company's been here time and time again. It's a staple, in the list of conferences that we attend on a yearly basis. It's at the top of the list. Everyone gets excited about LeadsCon. So we have a few people here. We've got dozens more. We've got tons of people here just walking around, meeting new people, meeting our current clients. So it's a great experience. It's awesome to be able to connect with people all in one centralized location because I can only go back and forth with someone on email, and we're not getting a lot of business done over the course of 1 week, 2 weeks, et cetera. So it's really nice to kind of get out here and be, showing people, that sort of face-to-face time. But, as far as engaging them and getting them on board and how the process kind of works, we are a digitally focused company, right? So we've got this QR code so people can come in, if myself, if Sarah, if Lauren, if anybody else on our team is already engaged with a customer or talking with somebody, I mean, we try to make time for everybody, right? But that allows them to kind of come through, they click on it, and then they're able to kind of go through the experience based off if they're an agent, if they're an affiliate, if they're a carrier or whatnot. There's a path for everybody to get in touch with our team, and so we can have these conversations and we can get them onboarded in whatever capacity that might be.
All right, thank you so much, Will Bewley, Business Development Manager, QuoteWizard by LendingTree. Thanks so much for this conversation.
No, thanks so much for having me. Appreciate you.
Of course.